This is Spoil Me, covering Red Rising Book 4, Iron Gold. Chapters 9 through 12. Lysander, Darrow, and Lyria. In these chapters, so it is the Red Hand that has showed up in Lyria's chapter. Lysander, I am very compelled by. And Darrow, what the fuck are you doing? Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashley for commissioning this episode. Ashley, if you are here, hi. Thank you so much. You guys, what is Darrow doing? What is he doing? I am distressed. It feels for me, it's like I can't tell how much I want to just jump down his throat because I didn't actually get to see this alleged meeting that would have changed the vibe of the whole thing. I don't know, based on just his word, if it's true that the people who came to negotiate were actually bullshit. You know, that's what he is saying. But frankly, I feel like I've reached a point that, based on the way that he has been behaving, I don't fully trust his say-so. And it makes me sad to feel like this, but he's just turned a corner. And I the only reason that I kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt is because Severo is behind him on this. And my instinct is to be well, I don't know. I feel like if Severo agrees, then probably there was something to that. But you know what? We have seen Severo have some really poor judgment calls himself. So I don't know why I'm sort of using him as a benchmark for well, if Severo thought that was correct, then probably it was. What? Since when? So yeah, I really have to stop, and it just feels like the fact that he kept this from everybody, that's the most damning thing to me. Is I know that the Darrow that we knew from the original 3 books lied to friends, lied to allies. That is just true. We've seen that. I'm not trying to act as if Darrow was some sort of uncorrupted. He compromised a great deal in a way that I think a lot of people wouldn't have been able to stomach, and which we have seen Dancer is only partially really able to stomach. So Darrow has always been somebody who struggles with the necessary evils of war. But it really does sound like he is reaching this point where he feels like his judgment is so flawless and so correct, and that other people's their hang-ups about war is just a result of them not really having the stomach for the hard decisions, you know? And especially considering the fact that we have Lyria and we see the way that she is living. Dancer's arguments during this presentation that winds up happening, I don't know what else to call it. Speech feels too... I feel like it's the opening arguments of a trial, you know? But I can't help but understand what Dancer is saying and really feel like he has a point. And considering how long it seems to have been since Darrow went home, I just don't feel that he really is connected anymore to the realities that people are living in. And he needs to get a reality check. this is something that just tends to happen in general. And it's a wild thing that I always think about because, you know, we've talked a lot on various programs that I have covered. I have discussed my feelings about whether it's possible to be a good person and also be a billionaire. And I just really feel like it's not. If you're a decent person, you don't feel like you can ethically hold on to that money. But setting that entirely aside, the weird thing that happens to people when they get money is that they do begin to like lose track of what regular life is like for people. And it's bizarre because it's not like they didn't come. Some people who wind up with crazy wealth truly did come from a background where they didn't have all of that. Not necessarily that they were impoverished, but they just never have to see things through the lens of a person pinching pennies. And so they become completely out of touch. And it's just so funny because like there was an article, and I can't remember if it was like the 2016 election cycle or if it was 2020, but there were some men running for office in New York City. I can't remember if it was like mayor or governor or what, but they were asked just as a touchstone for like how out of touch are these guys really? They were asked, how much do you think a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, like the median price for that kind of property is? And one of the men actually said around $90,000, which is 1-bedrooms in Brooklyn haven't been $100,000 since like 1940, I would think. And then the other man said something like $130,000. They were both told the correct amount and were absolutely blindsided. And one of them was like, in Brooklyn? Are you sure? Like questioning the person asking the question because the answer for him was so beyond belief. And this is what it's like a shockingly short amount of time that this sort of thing can happen in. And so what I keep thinking of with this is just Darrow is on the warpath in the most literal sense and so wrapped up in this war that has been going on for so long. And even though I understand him saying like, do you think I like war? I loathe it. I don't want to be doing it. And I believe him. I also think that he has gotten so hardened by everything that he has seen that he has truly reached a point where he doesn't believe negotiation will ever work. I think that he has come completely around to the idea that like it's force or it's nothing. They are not going to work with us and we need to set aside that little dream because it's nonsense. And that's a really bummer place to be. Anyway, let's begin with chapter 8. Lysander. Or chapter 9, my bad. I did chapter 8 last episode, and it ended with Lysander coming into that room where all of the prisoners from the ship and the crew were, and he finds the gold woman with the sigils on her hands, naked in a net hanging from the ceiling. And he goes to the gold first. Her body is contorted and twisted inside the confines of her prison. A bent metal chair lies beneath her, having been used to beat her as she hung in the net. Her right hand is a charred, burned mess from the welding torch that sits on a table. Blood seeps there, dripping onto the floor. The smell of burned skin and hair claws into my nostrils, making my eyes water. And the idea, you guys, like, I know that these creatures, I don't even want to call them obsidians, but that they eat people. And I'm going off of the ones that were on their home planet. I recognize that this is sort of a different deal that we are seeing nowadays, but it's still a similar kind of, it's coming from a similar place to me, this brutality. I knew that they ate people and that they just like had no regard for human life, but I think that I saw it in terms of a very animal sort of need for survival and dominance, and I didn't consider them as really enjoying tormenting people. So seeing that she was just like hung up and beaten at leisure and then like burned for fun, this is so fucking hideous. It's so much worse than I was expecting it to be. So he eventually, sure, her eyes do open, and he is truly startled because he really thought that she was dead. And he says that his name is Castor Augenis. I'm going to help you, but you have to be quiet and quick. The Ascomani, that's the name there. I have to remember this. I'm going to try and highlight this so that I have it for future. The Ascomani are still outside. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, she says. Hers is a rich Palatine accent. It startles me. The man was right. She's from the Luna Courts as well. What is she doing all the way out here? So he is able to undo the net easily and sort of catches her as she falls. But then there are the other people that he needs to deal with. And getting them out turns out to be a lot more of an arduous task. In the meantime, she is asking for stims, and he has a couple, and when she uses them, she does more than one. I think she does 3 total. And he says, she shocks me by injecting both at the same time. It's too much for her body mass unless she's built up a resistance to them, which inherently means something dangerous. There's something wrong here. Filled with a manic energy from the stims, she stumbles to her feet. I spring back to catch her from falling, but she steadies herself using the table. We must leave. More Ascomani are coming. We have to be gone before their ships dock. Help me with the others. Nodding along, she finds her clothing in a pile on the floor. Still covered in oil, she dons the pants and a green jacket, fumbling with the zipper because of the drugs in her system. Xander, what's your status? I found the gold. Copy. Lysander. Boy, the gold says from behind me. What docking tube are you using? 2B. 2B? I'll return it to you in 4 minutes on my honor. Return what? There's a blur. I don't even see her strike as the meat of her palm collides with the side of my temple. I stumble and something, maybe her elbow or knee, slams into my opposite ear, and I go down seeing stars. There's pressure on my hip, and I hear footsteps going out the door. She's 4 seconds gone before I realize what she took, my razor. So he tries to go after her, but he's fucked up, so he almost falls down. And it looks, because of the way he lunged after her, like he is just going to leave. And the people who are imprisoned here are getting very anxious at the fact that did this asshole Gold come in to just save the gold and now he's going to leave the rest of us? Which understandably, there's no reason to not think that, honestly. So he would have likely used his razor to slice these people out of the wires that are holding them in place, but he can't. She took that, and he can't use the plasma pistol because it's so close to their skin that it's very likely he would injure them. And Cassius, throughout all of this, is yelling in his ear, you have to leave them there. This sucks, but you have got to get out. And then, you guys, he pulls with all his strength at the wire, and it says, the wire cuts my fingers to the bone, and it doesn't even fray. Oh my God. That is so gross. Grabbing onto a blade is quite bad enough. This is something that I think about a lot with Song of Ice and Fire, because there is a point when somebody is trying to slit Kat's throat and she puts her hands in front of the blade and stops it. And I have always thought that was an incredibly badass moment and been would I have been able to do that? We're in her shoes. A wire is somehow so much more nasty to me. I think it's just the idea of how deep it could get and embedded it could be and difficult to get out potentially. there's just something about the invasiveness of it that really gets under my skin, and it's just a whole body shudder, you know? So finally, there's an obsidian in the door. He turns and fires instantly and kills the obsidian. Another one fills the frame. I fire and he ducks back into the hall. A scream wells up inside but doesn't escape my lips. I run like a coward back into the hall, firing around the corner blindly. The obsidian's chest melts inward as he swings his axe. I bend under it and slam into the far wall, where I use the impact to push off and struggle to my feet. The obsidian's chest is burned through to the liver, but he stumbles toward me, a tower of sinewy muscle and scrap armor and the pelts of dead animals. Aja and Cassius both told me never to come within arm's reach of an obsidian. They alone can break the reinforced bones of my kind, but there's no other choice. So he charges him, and I lower my jaw against his grip. Bits of meat cling to his beard. This dude, the whole thing is so gross, you guys. He's got like rotting flesh between his teeth. Makes me think of Jaws when they finally are out in the ocean and Quint gets eaten, and you see like the shark's mouth open and all of that flesh like jammed up between its giant shark teeth. I pull twice on the trigger of my pistol. The plasma enters under his ribcage at an angle and burns through his heart. His eyes go wide with shock, and his body collapses, dead. I land and suck in air just in time to see the third obsidian raging toward me down the hall. I fire, miss, and run. I do really enjoy the fact that he misses. Like, this is not a dude who is incompetent, but he is also not preternaturally good at everything. And at times, it felt like Darrow could be. He isn't really, but there were times. You know what I'm saying? So I skid to a hall. I hear them ahead of me, their tribal voices echoing as they move into the ship through the transfer causeways. Pitha, hallway to lift 11A is closed. I need you to guide me. Take your next left, she says without missing a beat. Conscious that Cassius is listening, judging, I take the left. 200 meters. I dash the distance, slow in my Evo suit. Maintenance lift is on your second right. I reach the lift and press the call button. It doesn't respond. A little sign's been affixed to the door itself, apologizing rather crudely for the broken lift by means of a talking phallus. Oh my God, there is something about that little detail. Why not? Back 20 meters, left stairs are right there, 20 down. Back? I ask, hoping I heard wrong. Now! I backtrack without running into the obsidian and find the stairs to begin my descent. 2 levels down, I pause. I hear them. Their boots beat the stairs 2 levels above me. I lose my footing on a rusted stair and nearly fall as the weight of the suit pulls me toward the ground. I race through the metal door and close it behind me. 100 meters straight, 5th left, straight 20 meters, first right. I follow, but as I turn to flee, I slam into someone and we both go down hard. It's the gold girl. She carries my razor. It's bloody to the hilt. Clumps of white hair cling to the gore. How she is standing is a miracle. At her stomach, layers of skin and fat pull back along a 6-inch gash to the right of the belly button. Looks like an axe wound. She hunches there, listening to the obsidians hammering on the door. Give me my razor, I say. Move. She lunges toward the door with her razor and sticks it through the molten metal. A raider on the other side screams and she draws the razor back. Blood hisses as the molten metal turns it to vapor. Where's your ship? She asks. Where's your gory damn ship? This way. I move to help her walk, but she flinches away. Don't be a fool. You can barely stand, I say. Glancing back at the bending door, she relents with a hiss of air between her teeth and throws her arm around mine. Cassius stands guarding the interior of the transfer bridge. He fires his pulse rifle over our heads at the pack that rounds the corner behind us. The distorted energy screams past my ears. There's a howl. I glance back and see an obsidian's head disappear. Magnetically shot bolts, as long as my forearm, rip past us and embed themselves into the walls. Then we're past Cassius and stumbling into the narrow causeway. "Disengage," he shouts to Pitha. Our bulkhead door seals, closing off the causeway as I spill with the gold girl to the transfer bay floor inside the Archimedes. There's silence, except for weeping from the crew we rescued. They're sprawled like us on the floor, huddled together, some in exultation, others still in fear, not yet believing that they could possibly be safe. They're not. "You idiot," Cassius says down at me. "What the hell were you thinking?" Before I can answer, he kicks my razor from the gold's hands. He bends as if to grab her face to look for the dread mark on her cheek when the floor of the archi opens up between us. He twists back and away as a fist-sized gray blur shrieks through and then goes out through the ceiling with a monstrous gasp of air. A hole has been ripped into the ship. Depressurization sirens scream. Red pulses from overhead lights. Another railgun slug pierces our hull, slamming through the floor up through the body of the paunchy red man we rescued, spraying us with his blood. You guys, that is like, can you imagine thinking that you have been rescued and then in your escape, you just still get nailed? Like, that fucking sucks. I guess the best thing to say about it is at least he's not like slowly tortured and eaten. This is at least a quick death, but Jesus Christ. Our engines are hit, Pitha says. Number 1 is half power, shunting energy from it to the shields. Cassius gestures to the gash on the gold girl's stomach. Cauterize that or she'll bleed out. He rushes through the survivors of the crew to the bridge. The gold girl is losing too much blood. Her skin is pale, and her chest rises and falls with shallow rapidity. So he lays her down and is trying to focus on helping her, but he is just haunted by the fact that all of those low colors, like, he did have to run and abandon them. And that is just clearly going to be something that is, like, on his soul. And it's not fair. He was put into a position where it wasn't, like, either you run or you die with them to assuage your conscience, but ultimately do them no good. So I don't think he was wrong at all to run. But that is simply the kind of thing that you are not going to be able to forget for the rest of your life. Like, there are just some things like that whether or not there was a different, better choice isn't the point. It's that you were forced to do it at all. So he tends to her injuries and he seems like pretty adept with all of this. And she gives him the number of the asteroid that she was heading toward. And she says, help at S1. And he's like, help? What does that mean? So he's looking at her face and he is trying to get a vibe off of her overall appearance. Accompanying those scars are 2 old knife wounds near her heart, a terrible burn on her left arm, and the remnants of an old wound on the left side of her head that claimed the top corner of her ear. I thought of her as a girl when I found her in that cage, but she's not a girl. She's a predator in young skin. Who else would go back into that nightmare ship? Why did you have to take my razor? Did she leave something behind? I search her clothes, her body. There's nothing hidden, no false teeth. But I have a suspicion. I run my hand over her face. The cheekbones are bold and high and covered like the rest of her face with oil. I scrape my nails along her closed eyelids. The false lashes there are well made and applied with some sort of resin. My fingers drift to her right cheek. Dread twists my belly as I feel the skin there give. I stand up and away. I know what she is. I suspected when she stole my razor, and then when her voice broke from the accent of the Palatine. Was she affecting that one? Was it a guise? I pick the corner of the odd patch of skin on her face till a thin layer of res flesh, the same sort Cassius uses to disguise himself, pulls away from the cheek, revealing what lies beneath. Along her right cheekbone, slashing through the black oil at a cruel angle, is the pale mark of a peerless scarred. I feel like if I were to really think about the injuries she has, it might be possible for me to piece together who this is. But I am not going to try. I feel like it would be very boring to listen to me try and puzzle this out. It's possible I'm not even correct and that I wouldn't be able to piece together who she is. This may be an entirely new character. So I'm not going to bother with it. But I did want to acknowledge that I have a suspicion that's, all detailed the way that it is for a very specific reason. It may just be for the sake of the detail, which is totally fine. But, All right, so Darrow 10, Liberty Eternal. I just hate this, guys. And I've talked about this whole thing in general from the top of the episode. So even though I'm only just getting to chapter 10 and I'm halfway through time, I don't feel too bad. But this this whole thing is so... I'm going to describe this scene, or I'm not going to. I'm going to read his description of it. I do enjoy this a lot. Severos squirms on the white cushion next to me as Publius Q. Caraval, the Copper Tribune, leader of the Copper Bloc, finishes the roll call. He's an elegant firebrand of a man, middle-aged, small of stature, with a narrow, pleasant face, a large nose, cold eyes, and an ambivalence toward fashion that borders on antagonism. That is a wonderful line. Caraval stands on a small circular plinth before the tiered C-shaped marble steps that encircle the white and red porphyry, don't know how to say that, floor. Small wooden chairs are set for each senator on the steps. Behind Caraval, recessed from the plinth, squats the unadorned mourning chair of the sovereign. Made of white wood carved with simple geometric designs, the chair looks dreadfully uncomfortable and is without cushion. Mustang had it removed. It's very symbolic. She leans against one of the arms of the chair and watches the senators. They sit clustered by color and political affiliation upon the cushioned steps. Dancers vox populi to the left of the huge Liberty doors that lead out of the Forum to the steps and the Via Triumphia. Mustang's optimates sit to the right. Obsidian and copper centrists occupy the middle. So Severo is here. He's bored, and he is looking at this mural on the wall, a romantic rendering of the Phobos Address, my speech that launched the rising on Phobos 10 years ago. I look young and radiant in paints of gold and scarlet and float on grav boots, cape billowing behind me like a magenta storm cloud, flanked by howlers, the sons of Ares, and Ragnar, even though he wasn't exactly there. Severo's jaw clenches. That doesn't look anything like me. He nods to his own image. He's right. The eyes of the rendering are blood red and insane. His hair's standing on end. His teeth look like rows of shattered porcelain. You look like a bloody saint plowed an angel and out you popped. I look like a deranged fucking mutant that eats babies. I, always think of this sort of thing, getting a mural dedicated to a historical moment. If you are the person that was key and instrumental, I think of this as the sort of thing that happens after you die. That people then begin to do this sort of... The idea that they're still alive to see the art. Can you imagine being this artist and, running into Severo? And just him being like, okay, so, one question, what the fuck? Anyway, I turn my attention to Mustang. A quorum being present, the floor will now hear the scheduled petition. She looks to me, Arch-Imperator. So, Darrow says Mercury is liberated, and the right half goes nuts. And this is a recurring thing. Every time that he says anything about how they're victorious, we did the thing finally, everybody on that side begins to stamp their feet and cheer, and there's a point where it's like a full minute before they calm the fuck down so that he can keep going. We can end it here now. Brothers and sisters of the Republic, we are one choice away from a fully liberated core, a free system from Sol to the asteroid belt. We would be the first men and women to ever see it, but it will be a sight not without cost. Like you, I wish for nothing more than peace. I wish for a world where the machine of war does not swallow our young. I wish to live in a world where my child can choose his own destiny, where the sins of the past do not define the nature of his life as it has defined all of ours. Our enemies have held dominion over us for too long, first as slaves, then as adversaries. And what stability, what harmony can we bring to the worlds we freed while they continue to define us? For the sake of our brothers and sisters on Venus and Mercury, for the sake of the souls we have unchained, for the sake of our children, give me the tools and I will finish this war once and for all. So then Daxo stands and he just basically reiterates all of this. He's like, I know that the heart of the Peerless Scarred, they aren't here to negotiate for peace. They're not going to accept this new world. They've got to be taken out. That's the only way. I will not abandon the Reaper, nor should you. The Optimates stand with the Reaper, and we propose a bill to the floor for a resolution of Liberty Eternal to draft 20 million fresh troops, to allocate ships from the Gulf, and to levy additional taxes to fund the war effort until the core is free. Daxo sits back down and makes a pained expression in my direction and rubs his temple. I couldn't tell if this was because he doesn't like we're making this request, if it's just an aversion to public speaking. But yeah, I was sort of curious about that. So then Caraval stands and he says, I was told I was brought to this world to serve, to move the levers of an ancient and evil machine. We all moved those levers, but now we serve the people. We are here to liberate the dignity of man. Darrow of Lycos is our greatest weapon against tyranny. Let us sharpen him again so he can break the chains for our brothers and sisters in bondage on Venus. And then it's open for debate. And Dancer stands, and he isn't as good at public speaking as they are. But finally, he gets to the point and is like, outright war and violence isn't the only way to do things. You guys know that's what my function has been. I am not somebody who thinks war is like something that you can always avoid. So I'm not coming to this from a place of somebody who is afraid. I have engaged in battle and I know it's necessary, but we are reaching a point where it doesn't have to be handled this way anymore. And he brings up the song that Darrow's wife sang and basically insinuates that Darrow has given up on pursuing the dream that she outlined for them in this song. And he says, we have no power in and of ourselves. We are just vessels, men and women chosen to speak for the people. You helped give people a voice, Darrow. For that we are in your debt. But now you refuse to listen to that voice, to obey the laws you helped make. You were given an order by the Senate, by the people, to stand down over Mercury. You disobeyed that order. Because of your impatience, 1 million of our brothers and sisters died in a single day. 200,000 obsidians, a number that cannot be replaced. The words are heavy as they fall, and I see the solemn anger of the obsidian block, the same anger I've felt from Sephi since that day. Not only did you do this, but you illegally pillaged elements of the Fourth Fleet that guards Mars to add to your assault on Mercury. Oh, really? Is this possibly related to the Red Hand getting through airspace? Because I feel like maybe this attack is his fault. which, wow, talk about ripples. That sucks. 1 million souls. A man once said that a war fought by politicians will be lost by everyone. I say bitterly, Harnassus and Orion support my plan. Your legions have protected you this far, but now you question them? Our legions? Are they ours? He lumbers forward, wrangling control of the conversation with all the grace of an old bear. How many of us have lost loved ones to war? Buried sons, daughters, wives, husbands. My hands are raw from digging graves. How many more must suffer to free Mercury and Venus? Planets now so indoctrinated that our own colors will fight against us for every inch of ground we take. So long as Mars is free, you're content to call it a day? I ask. Leave others to rot? He looks me in the eyes. Is Mars free? Ask a red from the mines. Ask a pink in Aegea's ghetto. The yoke of poverty is as heavy as that of tyranny. Mustang chimes in, we have sworn to eliminate slavery. And he's like, we also have a duty to make things better for people. And what is the purpose of winning if we are stretched so thin that the people we release from slavery are still suffering the kinds of oppression and poverty that they were suffering as slaves? What's the fucking point? And everybody kind of goes quiet at that because it feels like he really hit a nerve. And he says, when will it end? Darrow says, when the Republic is safe. And he says, when is that? When the Ash Lord falls? When we have Venus? And Darrow says, pretty much the Ash Lord is the thing. Like, if we get rid of him, the other golds will turn on each other. What of the Rim? We have a peace treaty with the Rim. For now. Their dots are destroyed. Octavia saw to that, Mustang. Does Mustang know? I can't remember if she knows how that really went down. So Darrow says, Romulus doesn't want a war, trust me. And Dancer says, we have. So many have trusted you for so many years. But you're in love with your own myth. You think the Reaper knows better than the people. You think I want war? I loathe it. It's stolen my friends, my family. It takes me away from my wife, from my child. If there were another path, I would take it. But there is no path around this war. The only way is through. I wonder, would you even know peace if you saw it? What if I told you that there was another path, one that's been hidden from us? What if we could have safety not tomorrow, not a decade from now, but right this very moment? I invoke my right to present a witness to the Senate body. A door opens and a lone set of heels click against the stone floor. And this woman comes in, and it is a Bologna, Julia Bologna, which I believe is Cassius' mother and the one that has held this grudge against Darrow for killing Julian forever and has not forgiven, has not forgotten, and is delighted to stick the fucking knife in his back today. Like, she lived for this. So her coming in as a peerless Scarred, like, this is a problem. And Mustang really feels like Dancer has, as she puts it, overstepped. And he says, so does your husband, but do you scold him? Which, yeah, like he has a point. I'm just Team Darrow or Team Dan. I keep doing that. Team Dancer so far. So, I traveled a month to stand before you. I will speak plainly so you understand. The Ash Lord tires of war, of seeing cities burned to rubble. During the siege of Mercury, emissaries, including myself, were sent to the Morning Star to seek audience with your warlord. We asked for an armistice. He replied, with an iron rein. Armistice, Mustang murmurs. And why did you request an armistice? Dancer prompts. The Ash Lord and the War Council of the Society wish to discuss terms. What terms? Speak plainly. Did the Reaper not tell you? She looks at me and smiles. We requested a ceasefire in order to discuss the terms of a permanent and lasting peace between the Rising and the Society. Now, Mustang evidently did not know about this. And that, for me, is something that I don't think she's going to be able to get past. The fact that he had this opportunity, did not take it, and did not tell her, I kind of feel like this may be something that just breaks them apart. I don't know. This would be, considering this is what they've been working for, and it seems like they were reaching out a hand. I don't know. And he says they weren't emissaries, they were provocateurs. Her and Asmodeus, it was a ruse that I did not warrant worth the time of this body. Asmodeus was on your ship, and you did not report this to us? Dancer asks, incredulous. Someone betrayed me. Someone in the Howlers. How else would he know? Next you'll say the Fear Knight himself was in your mess hall. How else would he know? I feel like it seems pretty clear that Julia is the one who told. Like, I would have thought this is her little move to try and fuck up the, I hesitate to say camaraderie, but at least, like, they're doing the same thing that Darrow is talking about doing by removing the Ash Lord, creating infighting among the Golds. I feel like if she was there and allowed to leave, what does she gain from keeping that whole thing to herself? Of course you would want to tell the people that are allied with Darrow, especially if you have the suspicion that he hasn't told them himself. Mustang has not moved from her chair, nor can she. Whatever she says will be dismissed as a wife defending her husband, and might indict her as well. If they think she knew, she'll be impeached, possibly worse, which is the very reason I hid this from her. My star is falling. If she holds on, it will drag her down too. Better to stay quiet, my love, better to play the long game. I know better than to struggle. A red senator lurches up from her seat and rushes across the floor. For a moment, I think she means to speak in my defense. Then she spits at my feet. Yeah, Darrow, he even says, like, the next paragraph is how he knew this day was coming, and it took so long that he kind of started to believe maybe it wouldn't. And he doesn't bother speaking to defend himself. The noble newscasters will sanctimoniously peal at every decision, every secret, every sin, and stream them across the worlds, feigning duty but delighting in the moral bloodshed, masticating my bones, cracking them for the marrow of ratings, and feeding their vulture appetite for gossip. I'm not surprised, but I am heartbroken. I don't want to be the villain. Wulfgar looks back at me pityingly, as if wishing he could carry me away from this public shaming. And Darrow, like, he doesn't... Dancer, when Severo stands up, he accuses him of being a backstabber. And Dancer is just like, literally, you guys have access to our armies, and you're just lying and doing what the fuck you want. Like, what are we going to do about this? And he sits down, and Caraval stands up. There cannot be peace while there is no justice, but in one matter I fear he strikes the mark. You have overstepped, Arch-Imperator. You have forgotten your oaths made to serve the people. I propose a vote to remove Darrow of Lycos from high command and to place him under house arrest pending a trial for acts of treason against the Republic. And I propose temporary cessation of hostilities with the Golds of the Corps so that we may decide ourselves between war and peace. The next line on its own is the sanctimonious bastard. Like, the fact that's what Darrow is thinking, that this is him being sanctimonious, this is just people pursuing what allegedly you also once wanted, Darrow. And yet you're coming at this like it is and I'm not trying to act like politics isn't a personal thing, that you can't have your own agendas based solely on your conflict of personality with somebody. But this just feels basic to me. It's reminding me of the end of the Battle of Songbirds and Snakes that I covered with Rashawn, where like Snow is just assuming all of these people are out to get him in this very particular way, instead of that they are just trying to stop the thing from happening that he wants to happen. And he's taking them opposing the thing as them opposing him, which isn't really the same thing. So he, like, this whole thing, he asks if he's under arrest because Wulfgar is like, don't leave the city. But when he says, am I under arrest? He's told he is not. And Severo says to Wulfgar, you need to back the fuck up. Some little shit told them. I should carve Caraval's balls off. Treason? They can't actually arrest you, can I? Can they? They might not put me in deep grave, but they'll lock me up for as long as they think they don't need me, long enough for the Ash Lord to make his move. Severo sneers. The 7th Legion will have something to say about that. Should I call Orion the Telemonuses? Kavak should be on his way back from Mars. I look back to the forum. Inside, Mustang will be attempting to repair the damage done. But with Copper lost, she won't have the votes to protect me. There's nothing more I can do here. This isn't my world. I knew it before, and Dancer just reminded me. The man says all I know is war, and he is right. In my heart, I know my enemy. I know his mettle. I know his cruelty. And I know this war will not end with politicians smiling at each other from across a table. It will only end as it began, with blood. No, Severo. Summon the Howlers. Really? Really? That's what you're going to do? The Howlers. Now? Come on, Darrow. Like, literally, what the fuck? I'm disgusted. He really is just like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and anybody who opposes my viewpoint is a moron that I shouldn't have to listen to, because fuck them. And I like, it's a sort of thing that I understand how you could get high on your own myth, as Dancer put it, after doing the things that Darrow has done. You know, like, the things that this man has accomplished, the obstacles that he has overcome, it would be pretty hard not to be feeling yourself. So I'm not even as mad about that as I could be. It's just the fact that people around him that he has trusted are all like really upset at the way he's behaving, and he really starts to feel like, I mysteriously have more enemies than I used to, instead of stopping to consider that maybe your behavior is changing, and so the people who stood by you are turning a corner, and that may be your fault. But no, he can't think of it that way. So then we get the last chapter, Lyria. And I don't have that much time left in this episode, but honestly, what's going on with Lyria isn't even that detailed, because most of this is her just trying to gather her family together and run. She just like flees after she sees her brother shot. She does not try to collect his body or anything. She runs back to her family, and she has to tell them the Red Hand is here. And her sister is like, well, where's Tyrion? And she has to tell her she's dead. They shot him. He's dead. Tyrion is dead. Not just dead. Mutilated. Lyria, get Dow up. We have to go. Go where? I don't know, but we can't stay here. Lyria, do it now. How can she be so calm? She didn't have to see Tyrion's head dissolved into fragments. She pushes me toward the bunk room. I find Da awake and staring at me as if he already knows. Did he hear about Tyrion? You know what's happening? I ask. He barely nods. I need you to help me with your arms. Tyrion usually lifts him from his bed into his wheelchair. I'm not as strong. So she starts to lift him, and he says no, and looks down at himself and makes it very clear, I don't need to come with you. I'm going to slow you down. He doesn't say all this, but it's quite clear from the way he is behaving and resisting and looking at her that he knows there is no way they are standing a chance of getting out of here if they try and drag him along. His milky eyes watch me. They see me now. That's what breaks my heart. He could have seen me sooner. He could have looked at me instead of draining his life away into the HC. Why now? Why when we have so few seconds left? I wrap my arms around him. I kiss him on the forehead, staying there, smelling the musk of his skin and greasy hair, remembering what he was. This was very emotional for me. The idea of like somebody that has otherwise not been there for you. And in the last moments, they sort of come to the surface again. And yet they had the opportunity to do this earlier and they didn't take it. It's not until a life or death situation sort of shakes them out of it. And how enraged that would make me also. That it has to get to a point like this before you fucking manage to pull yourself out of it. And it's like, I understand mental illness and I understand what it is like to not be able to control your reaction to things and sinking into a deep depression. All of that I get, but there is no changing how it would feel to be a person who is tied by blood to somebody who has seemed to completely have checked out of their life and have checked out of their relationship with their children or any sense of effort or needing to make a home for the people under their care. Like, there is just no way I would be able to avoid feeling resentment and rage towards somebody that I felt was opting out and yet remaining around to remind me every day how we aren't enough to motivate you to get the fuck up and do something. And that may be unfair, but as somebody who has had parents that really felt very self-absorbed sometimes growing up, I can't help but know that about myself, that I wouldn't be able to restrain that kind of rage. It would just, so her reaction here and trying, at least in this last moment, to look past it and just have a moment of goodbye with him, doing the best that she can to let go for a moment. I really, really understand how important it would be to make yourself do this and how difficult it would be and how you may even resent in the moment having to swallow it and do this, So they get the kids together and Liam is still at the infirmary, the little blind boy that is her favorite. And when they get all of the children together, Lyria tells them, make for the jungle, we'll meet you there. And her sister is like, well, you won't find us. The East Guard Tower, and she says there's trucks there. The north looked quiet. Then meet us there at the north. Then we'll go together to the fishing boats. We can go downriver. A distant explosion rattles the plastic home. What about Da? She asks. He sits in his chair watching us impassively. I shake my head once. We can carry him, my sister says, but we both know we can't. We wouldn't make it 20 meters dragging him and the children. So she tells the children to give him a kiss. they clock what that means like pretty quick. She has to tell them, you just have to go on ahead. I'll bring him. We'll meet you. But it feels like Ava doesn't believe her. So we hold each other's hands, a life full of wedding skirts, births, and love, reduced now to a single second of fear. And then our hands are parting and the door closes and she's swallowed by the nightmare outside. Through a crack in the plastic, I watch her run, clutching Ella to her breast and dragging her 2 boys along into the dark. I stay behind with my father in the hut, listening to the world ending beyond the thin walls. Some part of me thinks that if we stay here, the storm will pass us by. The plastic will somehow keep the Red Hand and their guns and sling blades out. I want to tell Da it will be well, that I'll see him soon. It's the most present he's been in a year, looking at me knowing this is the last time he'll see me. She tells him, I'll see you in the Vale. I love you, I love you, I love you. And then she runs. Leaving him behind is like tearing a part of my body away. I have to get Liam. So she goes to the infirmary and its door is locked. A peaked white plastic building stained on its fringes by mud. Waiting there in the rain like a girl in a white dress, I hammer on the doors. Let me in, it's Lyria, let me in. Where's Liam? In the back. Janice guides me through the rows of cots filled with terrified children and infirm patients. What's going on out there? Red Hand, dropships, and trucks. They're here, but the Republic, damn the Republic, we've got to run. Liam. And she finds him, snuggles him up, tells him, we've got to go. Your mom is waiting for us, so we will meet her. I need you to be brave. And as she's leaving, Janice says, it'll be safer here. It's a hospital. Even they have to respect that. I stare at her, dumbfounded. Are you bloody damn bent in the head? You need to get everyone and get out. Lyria. I don't stop to reason with her. I shoulder past and burst out of the infirmary. Yeah, this is one of those things that I know that I am also guilty of. It's just like the assumption that there is a line that you don't cross, and really believing that there are people out there who also function this way. Like that everybody, it's just something that we can all take for granted. We all know. Well, you just don't go that far. You don't do that. And being genuinely surprised when I come across somebody who is just like, what? No, yeah, I definitely passed that line. I don't care about that. I need to get done what I need to get done. You're in my way. I don't really understand how you don't see that this is, of course, the only option. It's just like, I really loved, are you bent in the head? Also, there's something about the way she says that. So she is running, and as she is like on the actual road, someone screams Gamma and points at me. Terrified, I duck into an alley and lose them in the shadows. So it's really interesting to me, like the whole thing with the Red Hand and the fact that she's Gamma. Like we know that the Gammas were the ones that were slightly higher in the overall artificially established pecking order, and that they were just given us enough for the rest of the families to hate them and to stoke infighting and keep them from focusing on the people who are actually in charge, doling out this oppression. So I don't know if this like thing against the Gammas is based purely on that, if there is something else that they have done somehow, if they have like been complicit in some kind of atrocity, helping the Golds out who are like Peerless Scarred. I really can't imagine, and I have to assume it's just that old grudge. So I'll be very interested in hearing, where this goes. And long story short, she's like hiding with Liam, who she gives him chocolate. And I love the fact that even in the midst of this horrible thing, he actually says thank you to her for the chocolate. Like, and there was something about that. You know, a lot of kids in their fear would just grab at it and just eat it. And he can't, he just says, thank you. And it's such a moment to me of like his personality, you know? I ease up and see several sets of eyes catching moonlight from beneath discarded water containers. A family in hiding. A little girl raises her hand to wave to me. I wave back. We're not alone. We can survive this. Somewhere out there, Ava is waiting for us. We'll go to her soon. I just need a breath. But then I smell the fire. And that is a shame. Fire, in as closely packed a place as this, that'll rip through things. And what a horrible way to go. So that is the end of chapter 12. I am not excited. I really am worried that everybody Lyria knows other than Liam is going to be killed. And that fucking sucks. So, all right, guys, I have got to wrap up. But thank you again so much for commissioning this, Ashley, and to all of you for listening. I hope you're enjoying the coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers. That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.